Welcome everybody to episode 97 of the ADV podcast. We've got a very serious one, of course. We're going to be talking about the Russia-Ukraine situation today. We have a lot to talk about, and especially the ties to China, which are vast.
It's one thing, again, I think I always say this, but the media has been very silent on it. I don't think it's by design, but it's been very overlooked at how much influence China actually has. To be honest, way more influence than I thought they would have in this situation.
Yeah.
Just because of what's been uncovered. And we've personally uncovered some pretty juicy stuff ourselves.
Yeah, pretty strong links
Yeah.
between the Russian and Chinese propaganda, which we'll be showing you a little later.
Yeah.
But of course, we can't jump into this very serious topic without at least having a bit of humor.
Of course,
so,
yes.
So let's go into what's new, where we talk about what's new in China. And, well, today's what's new is kind of something that's old.
Well, it's fantastic.
It's really good.
So let's be cheery, happy. We're going to get into the serious stuff later, but let's start this in a good spirit.
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you something we spoke about and showed you a while ago. And everybody knows this. We've got the sound clips, but this is from a 2021 movie from China. Okay. And
can you play a soundbite first? So
you know, like this whole thing.
Sandwich Biden.
And
We'll live in the fear.
you know this, right?
If you're fans of ADV, then you'll know these things. We just thought it was a bad Chinese movie.
Yes.
It turns out they can't even make a bad Chinese movie.
No, they can't. Let's take a look. All right, we're just going to play.
Just play it out?
We don't even need to interfere. No. Okay, we'll get out of here. Just watch this.
Hello? The Wolf Security Company.
Salam. Libyan visa.
Check up the car. Everybody get out.
Sorry. We can't.
Pull over for inspection.
Sorry, sir, I can't do that.
Move down! Move down!
Look up. Go ahead, look up. You see the drone? No? That's all right, because the drone sees you. Sees your face. We know who you are. Anything happens to us, your home, your family, gone. Looks up. Nothing? Don't worry. She saw you. I'm F down, get your image. If we die in here, our companion would not let it go. Yourself and your family will live in the fear. How willing are you to die for your country? I'm ready to go right here, right now. I'm ready to die for my companion. Anytime.
C'est bon, laissez-les partir.
Yeah. So.
Wow. More like living in the plagiarism.
Yeah, exactly. So it turns out that that's from a movie from 2016 called 16 Hours 13 hours, something like that. And yeah, they can't even come up with their own plot line for lame stuff like that.
I think it was even a B movie. I don't think the 13 hours. I don't think it was massive.
Looks pretty well.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think it wasn't like a blockbuster.
I'd never heard of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, yet another example of how you think something is already peak bad.
Yeah.
But actually, it gets much worse because, and you oftentimes see this. I think you can agree with me here.
Yeah.
You'll oftentimes see something and be like, that is awful, and then you find out later that it's just plagiarism.
Yeah.
Over and over, and this happens in almost every piece of media I tend to see, especially action movies and stuff this.
From China, yeah, absolutely.
They'll use footage from like the U.S. Air Force and like all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's funny stuff.
It's
anyway,
good stuff.
So we thought we'd start you out with that one. Now we're actually going to go into worldview. Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna do worldview first.
Before we get into our main topic, because the main topic, Soft Power Hour, is where we really go into this whole connection between the Chinese propaganda and the Russian propaganda when it comes to Ukraine and so on. So before we get into that, we thought we'd get straight into worldview. But of course, we have to read a few super chats first. So
Ghost Wolf Declassified says, with the Russian invasion of Ukraine underway, do you think that China will take advantage of the situation and ramp up its pressure on Taiwan and the South China Sea, or possibly even go ahead with the invasion of Taiwan? You will have to stay tuned. We'll cover that in very
we're
big
going
depth.
to cover that.
Not only that, we'll cover it on our channels as well.
Mm-hmm.
Madar Gupta says, is Taiwan safe? Seeing that the USA and allies tend to seek excuses like NATO membership and World War and economic backlash and not challenge Putin and Xi. Again, stay tuned.
Yeah,
Boycott
we'll
China says, is there any way to volunteer for Taiwan's defense forces? Maybe send them an email.
Hey, that's actually a good question.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, a lot of armies allow that.
Yeah.
So send Taiwan an email. I'm sure the army has like an email address.
Yeah, I wonder if they accept mercenaries.
Potentially.
Tons of South Africans would love to go join that.
I bet they would if war broke out.
Yeah.
Madar Gupta says, what if Ukraine sees a joint statement with Russia tomorrow, seeing that NATO isn't ready to support them? Who will NATO sanction and then over what? Again, this is all in our main topic.
Yeah, we will be. And
I just want to clear these out.
All of these questions about the Ukraine and Taiwan and so on, we will answer in this episode a little later.
Blackmar Zero says, the CCP was hostile to the USSR to the point that it joined forces with the West to suppress them. Do you think the CCP is now more supportive to Russia because they are not competing for leadership of the communist sphere? I can answer that very easily by saying the CCP is only masquerading to be friendly to the USSR or to China or to Russia. Sorry, I'm reading your super chat.
Yeah.
To Russia because they have a lot of things to sell them, and there are no allies or support for China in the region. So it's friends of my enemy, enemy of my friends type situation.
Enemy of my enemy is
enemy
my
of
friend.
my enemy is my friends. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Blackmar Zero says the CCP was hostile to the USSR. Oh, sorry, I just read that. Okay.
Okay, so let's move on to worldview then, shall we? Where it's kind of like what's new, but where we talk about what's going on in the world. And of course, today we're talking about the whole Ukraine situation. So how about you kick this off?
Sure. So, as you guys know, we are amidst a very, very serious and devastating and heartbreaking situation. I think I can speak for all of you when you woke up and saw that the invasion actually happened. It was a bit of a surprise. In fact, it was a bit of a surprise because of hundreds of messages that I have been receiving over the past few months when there was speculation about this, especially when U.S. intelligence was calling an invasion, saying that, oh, this is bullshit, it's not going to happen, all this kind of stuff. And I'm always saying that an invasion of Taiwan is not on the immediate horizon, but I do trust intelligence if they're saying that they're going to invade Ukraine. I was erring on the side of caution there.
I mean,
saying,
all the troop buildup and
the troop
everything.
buildup. The writing was on the wall.
Yeah, it didn't surprise me at all. I was very disappointed and heartbroken when it actually happened.
That's what I want to say. I think that I can speak for everyone and say when you turned on the news and you saw it happening, that it was disappointment and heartbreak rather than shock.
Yeah,
shock and awe. And really horrible imagery coming out. It put me in a really bad headspace the past couple of days. And it's one of those things where I don't want to avoid it because number one, I have to pay attention to it to figure it out. And number two, it's a moral responsibility as well to figure out what's going on. But it's also horrible. It's also horrible to see this. I mean, it's 2022 and we're in a situation where a global superpower is invading a sovereign nation. That shouldn't be a thing.
No,
right?
It shouldn't. Current year argument.
What's that?
Current year argument. It's
Current
2022 and we're still, you know what I mean?
I know. Of course it's a current year argument, but
course.
it's still that's what drives it home, right?
Yeah.
It makes it more recent stuff is more palpable and awful. So anyway, I just got a map of the current conflicts. But I wanted to cover a couple things for the worldview aspect. This is not that, again, stay tuned for the China aspect.
Yeah.
I just wanted to show, if you guys, you can speak about this maybe.
Well, they're calling him the ghost of Kiev, right? Fighter pilots, the first ace fighter pilot in modern times, took down 6 enemy planes in a single day.
It's pretty wild.
It's insane. It's really fantastic. You know, that's really my wheelhouse. I love fighter jets.
I threw it
and
in
everything.
there. I thought of you when I made the media pack.
Yeah. No, I think it's fantastic. I'm going to... Maybe we can do an update on where this all goes because it's still early days when it comes to this, but I want to find out exactly what happened and the planes that were involved and everything, and we'll talk about it.
You know, when they, in Chinese propaganda, state propaganda brings up their heroes. They bring up someone named Lei Feng, who is completely fabricated.
Fake. Yeah, it's fake.
It's a guy they made as like a hero till he died from a light pole falling on him or something. But he would go out there and they'd catch him with A power line, yeah.
Yeah.
Catch him with professional cameras, like being altruistic or whatever. It's like a role model, right?
Yeah.
This is an actual,
It's
it's a
real.
real person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't know his name though. The Ghost
Yeah,
of Kiev.
you know, I play DCS World, which is like a real digital combat simulator, and people are already, you know, trying to recreate what happened here and there to
Right.
like really figure it out. It's really fantastic what's going on. Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to go into a very heartfelt speech from Ukraine. And I wanted people to see this. It's got English subtitles. It's only a minute. And I thought it was a really good sentiment, because what I think people get really misconstrued is that if you are like us and you're talking about the devastation that authoritarian dictatorships bring to the world, particularly China is what we talk about because we have experience with it.
Yeah.
You might think, oh, you know, these people are calling for some sort of conflict to suppress the threat of the Chinese government, things like this, right?
Yeah.
But actually, we're not. I don't think Winston or I have ever called for conflict whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, I wanted to clear that up. I want to make sure that people never, you know, think that anybody in this sphere and who we collaborate with are pro-war. War is always a bad thing. I didn't say war is 100% not justified sometimes, but it's always bad. The outcome of war is always bad. It's death. It's destruction.
Yeah.
It's horrible. And what I wanted to get into here was the personal response. We both have friends in Ukraine and Russia, who we've spoken to. We'll actually play a little clip from someone. But you might think, if you were just looking at a headline of tanks rolling people over or some planes flying overhead and shooting missiles into civilian establishments, that Russia is a bad guy, right? Or that, you know, this is all a one-sided thing. Yeah. When in fact, the Russian people and the Ukrainian people, brethren, a lot of them, don't want this.
Of course.
Right? And it's something that I think gets really overlooked, right?
Yeah.
So I did want to play this this little clip here.
Yeah, we will definitely play this clip. I just got to say, like I said earlier, is I'm going to confirm exactly about this.
Of course.
Of Kiev,
it's still developing.
Right now, it's out there.
Sure.
It's boosting people's morale. You never know in these situations if things are being
of course.
exaggerated.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say like this is fact verbatim.
No, but absolutely. The legend of the Ghost of Kiev is amazing.
It's cool and it's developing.
And can't wait to find out a little more about this. Anyway, let's play this clip that you wanted to play because I think it's very important for everyone.
Сегодня я инициировал телефонный разговор с президентом Российской Федерации. Результат – тишина. Хотя тишина должна быть на Донбассе. Поэтому сегодня я хочу обратиться ко всем гражданам России. Не как президент. Я обращаюсь к российским гражданам как гражданин Украины. С вами нас разделяет более 2000 километров общей границы. Вдоль нее сегодня стоят ваши войска, почти 200 тысяч солдат, тысячи боевых машин. Ваше руководство одобрило их шаг вперед на территорию другой страны. И этот шаг может стать началом большой войны на европейском континенте. Мы точно знаем, нам не нужна война, ни холодная, ни горячая, ни гибридная. Но если на нас будут наступать войска, если у нас попытаются отнять нашу страну, нашу свободу, наши жизни, жизни наших детей, мы будем защищаться. Не наступать, защищаться. Наступая, вы будете видеть наши лица. Не наши спины, наши лица.
I wanted to highlight the Ukrainian side of things, the humanist aspect, right?
Right.
I liked how the president addressed the people of Russia, not pointing fingers, right? Not saying like you are the enemy, right? Yeah. He's saying that your leaders, and this is a distinction we make all the time too.
Of course.
Your leadership and your government has made a horrendous decision, and it's honestly up to you to try to put a stop to it.
Yeah.
Right. Our friend No Fuckers, he's
we'll
I put his channel
here.
link here. It actually doesn't. His channel link doesn't match the name of the channel, so make sure you type it in properly. But it's in the description below.
You can see it there.
he's a friend of the channel. He's a Russian vlogger in Russia, and he covers things just from the ground, from a realistic perspective as a Russian person. And he made a fantastic video here that I want you guys to go watch. So go give him a subscribe and go watch him. But he made a video basically saying that we Russians don't want any part of this.
Yep.
Right. So you can play some of the footage here. He has some of the protests.
Well, you know, I'm going to also, I got to say something before we show this, or before we continue with this. The people of Russia that we know, and for a large portion of the people of Russia, do not want this war.
No.
Okay? And so it's not about, oh, Russians are bad. Just remember that.
Right.
And as a South African, I can say the same. Growing up when apartheid was being abolished, and my entire life, when people hear that I'm South African, there's a stigma there. Oh, you're a racist. You're bad. It's absolute bullshit. You have to understand that as a person growing up in South Africa, I never supported apartheid. It's never been something that I'm like, yes, you know, this is what I want. Just like many Russians don't support this war.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to separate the individual from the nationality. You know, it's an incredibly important thing to do.
Right. And I just wanted to extend the same gesture that we do to China.
Yeah.
Because the Chinese people we know and love in the country we lived in over a decade.
Yeah.
14 years for you, 10 years for me. That we don't just do it for lip service. We don't say the CCP is not the people for lip service. We do that because it's a moral responsibility that we believe.
Yes.
Because if we start demonizing human beings with families as just someone that rampantly and blindly supports the government to the point where they'll march into battle and kill people for it, that's just not the case.
No.
And if we don't delineate that, then that's unbelievably unfair.
Correct.
Right? And Russians deserve the same treatment.
Yeah. If you're in the Russian military and you're fighting, it's a different story. That's a choice that you've made, you know?
Yeah.
So anyway, let's continue.
That's a good point.
So these are some of the things that are happening in Russia, the Russian people protesting against. And of course, this is an incredibly dangerous thing to do.
Yeah. I wanted to also say that Russia is not a free country by any means. It's an autocracy, right? But the people that are protesting are getting taken away. They're risking their futures, their lives, everything, right? Yeah. But if you did this in China, and I'm not doing a whataboutism, but if you did this in China, it would be, no one would be on the street here.
No.
It would be rounded up and people would be killed immediately.
Absolutely.
Not saying that's not happening in Russia, but China's the next step below that in terms of personal freedoms.
Here we have a Russian tennis star as well, writing on the camera.
That was cool, yeah.
You know,
actually, you can see the camera when he pulls away.
Yeah, I'll get us out of there.
This shot here.
Yeah, no war, please.
So, I mean, I just wanted to mirror the sentiment of the average Russian person out there.
Yeah, correct. You know, again, you have to understand that this is the government has decided and Putin has decided in all his wisdom, or lack thereof, to go ahead with this invasion. And the army's going in there and they're doing terrible things.
And they do have a certain level of conscription as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you got to feel for some of the soldiers even because they haven't made the choice. And I saw some people even just give up and refuse to shoot, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a tough one. You know?
It's awful. It's again, we're at the whims of a megalomaniac that has his finger on the trigger and wants to do something that other people don't want.
Yeah,
it's unfair.
Correct.
So, importantly,
now
we need a transition.
We're going to go into soft power hour because this next part it's soft power hour. We're getting right into that, aren't we?
Yes.
Okay. So before we do that, we'll do a couple of super chats and then we're going to hit soft power hour, all right? Where we talk about the whole China aspect to this invasion of the Ukraine.
So Rate Cook says, freedom to Ukraine, Slava Ukraina. Message for the delusional peeps around the world, Estonia is here. Actually wanted to throw out, there's like a public service people are doing. If you are in Ukraine, there's a lot of Russian propaganda going around saying all the borders of the neighboring countries are closed and they're not taking refugees. Absolutely untrue.
Sure.
I believe Slovenia and Slovakia are taking refugees. I believe Romania is taking, and I know Poland is taking refugees.
Yeah.
And I think other countries are currently opening their borders. So don't believe that kind of stuff.
Sure.
If for some reason you're watching this and not like trying to get out of your horrible situation.
Right.
Angry Dragon says, what's up, guys? Here's some good luck cash.
Thank you.
Putin is a Tazak.
Yeah, he's a He is. We should put them together.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Next time I'm going to put Putin in
Hey,
here.
if we do that, we should have Xi Jinping in there. Actually,
Yeah.
Xi Jinping's a different. He's just as bad, but he's a little different. A different vibe, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a disgusting disease.
He's like
bear.
a lazy desert.
Yeah.
You know,
They're both desert.
he walks. He never runs. You know.
That's true. It's,
Yeah, he's always
just
just
swing back and forth in that
Yeah,
desert. You know?
yeah.
It turns out Putin has also paid a bot army of his own dictators, and they need to live in the fear. Actually, we
yes.
do have
We'll live
Russian
in the fear.
bots in our chat.
Oh, we do.
Confirmed. I knew this would happen. I mean, they're all
Absolutely.
over the internet right now. We also have Wumaos as well.
Well, it's got some Wumaos that are supporting the Russian invasion.
Oh, you guys might not know this, but Winston and I have found some really good stuff.
Yeah.
Lao Why Not, thank you very much. Jerry Huang says, nice haircut, Sea Milk. Jerry, friend of the channel, always good to see you.
Yeah, it's good
Thank you very much.
good to have a haircut. Finally, people can see over your head.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
I didn't even want it this short. I just said, like, do whatever. I
Yeah.
told the barber, I was like, just do whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Lao Why Not says, hope your back is feeling better. Ayo, tong suola.
Good, good. Someone
stuff.
remembered.
I love
yeah.
that. I love that. And Case Clause 93 says, in light of recent conflicts, people have been debating about the effectiveness of sanctions. There was a report that said they're ineffective. Winston, as a South African, do you agree?
No, look, sanctions and political pressure from overseas is what changed the South African government and landscape. Absolutely. You know, it's a small country on the tip of Africa. It's very self-sufficient. I mean, that's why we have all of our homegrown brands. You know, we didn't have McDonald's and Starbucks and stuff. So
Sure.
we got all these weird things like Spur steakhouses and whatnot. And South Africa could survive to a certain point, but so much pressure and being cut off from the rest of the world to the point where you just didn't have access to anything was what pushed it over the edge. Not
Yeah.
being allowed to do international sporting competition, not allowed to, you know, enjoy any trade with the outside world. It really puts you in a pinch, and it did change. For better or for worse, it changed the landscape of South Africa. So it does actually work.
Yeah.
But it has to be done properly.
Yeah.
The thing is, South Africa didn't have China backing them up.
No.
That's
No.
the thing. So if the rest of the world said sanctions against South Africa, but China's like, but that's okay, we'll help you out, they would never have changed, ever. So,
So in this situation, you'd have China in the background. That'll be like, okay, we'll make this not so bad for you,
Yeah.
right? But then sanctions would need to be put on China.
yes.
And that should have been done a long time ago,
Long
guys.
time ago.
Especially with the genocide.
Yeah, and all this stuff. So sanctions do work, but they don't work. I mean, it's like if you've got someone who's hungry and, you know, someone's feeding them all the time, so they're okay. And they're like, hey, listen, I'm not going to give you any more food if you keep kicking that dog or whatever the case. And then they're like, okay, I'll stop kicking the dog. But if you say, I'm not going to give you any more food because, you know, if you kick the dog, but then the neighbor says, but I'll give you food, so keep kicking the dog. It doesn't work.
No.
You absolutely have to cut them off. Anyway.
But yeah, it takes time. Sanctions
Yeah.
take time. And it also hurts the average person, which is bad.
Yeah.
Right? When you cut off SWIFT and you do all this stuff, it hurts the average Russian person. It will hurt the average
I
Chinese
mean,
person.
dude,
but
yeah.
that's why I said it takes time. It's awful. And it's something that needs, you know, it's hard to justify at times because you look at the humanist aspect of it, but you also have to cut off the top leadership.
Yeah.
Because when that happens, then leadership can change and morph and kind of mold to become a better entity, right?
I mean, if I had to suffer as a young boy not being able to have access to the things you did when you grew up, let's
Sure.
just say, for instance, Nintendo. I know that's a stupid example to make.
That's fine.
In
It
a
works.
terrible
It's real.
situation
It's
like
real.
this, but there were so many aspects of just everyday life that I was denied simply because I'm South African and I grew up in a country where there were sanctions against me. You know, you learn to adapt and survive. Okay, adapt and overcome. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Russia had the same.
Yeah.
You know, they had Dendy and stuff
Yeah.
instead of Nintendo because they couldn't get it.
Right.
The Soviet Union had similar things.
Right.
People overcome. But of course you're going to have fallout with the local population. You're not killing them or anything.
No.
You're just depriving them of certain things, and it's awful. But that's the only way that's going to push change.
Yeah.
You know, because when the local citizens are like, listen, we're tired of this to their government. We want to be able to access, I don't know, Hollywood films or whatever it is that they can't access. Or we want to be able to do business with international banks. I want to be able to, you know...
Get my money.
Yeah, get my money and stuff. The local government might capitulate to that.
That's what that sanctions are for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To slap people on
So,
the wrist and say, stop
yes.
being bad.
The average person is going to suffer.
Yes. And then the leadership will say, okay, maybe we shouldn't be running over civilian vehicles with tanks.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's an awful, complicated situation.
All right, last one here.
Let's do one more.
Grey Hollow, thank you very much. Tommy Key 07. A few months ago, the company that provides my law firm's trademark docketing software added province of China to Taiwan. Well, F them.
Yeah.
I'd complained to them and happy to report that they recently changed it back to Taiwan. Well, un-F them.
Yes.
Speaking out makes a difference.
It does make
Very
a difference.
important.
When you speak out against atrocities and when you speak out against these little salami slicing tactics that they
Yes.
use, like, oh, we'll just change this a bit until it's too late, you know? Speak out against it and you can actually reverse it or stop it in its tracks. Anyway, it's time for us to get into our main segment, which is Soft Power Hour. We have a lot to talk about here.
Yes.
Now, we all know, and I'm sure many people have seen, in the beginning of, just before this invasion, the US intelligence community came out to say, look, Russia's planning an invasion. And both the far right and the far left Twitter were like, this is bullshit, it's never going to happen. They're always
well be the
lying
same.
about it. Yeah. Or you lie about it. It's like US intelligence, imperialist, hegemonic, blah, blah, blah.
Shit.
What's a military industrial whatever those stupid words that they've been throwing out since the 60s. You
Yes.
hear this all the time.
They haven't really changed, have they?
No, it's all the same. You know what I mean? But how on earth does that affect the Russia-Ukraine situation?
How on earth does U.S. intelligence, how is that a partisan thing?
Yeah.
The
Anyway.
intelligence said that there's going to be an invasion, and guess what? There was.
Yeah, there was an invasion, but you know what? A lot of people jumped the gun on both sides of the fence.
Yeah.
Like this particular...
I would say the extremes.
This particular gem of a man called George Galloway.
This is insane what we
Okay,
found about this.
So he says, y'all said hashtag Russia was about to invade hashtag Ukraine. I told you it wasn't. You were wrong. I was right. Again, show some bloody humility, especially if they're not even paying you to act like an idiot. Okay.
Projectionism?
Yeah, I'd say projectionism. Now, this actually led us down a bit of a rabbit hole. We're going to get into that because we've got a few other things to cover.
Yeah, I just wanted to show some people a couple examples of that. So that was a good example of something that led us to a China connection.
Yes, the big China connection.
This is one of thousands of things I saw on the other side. So this is so that the example that you use would be an example of the far left, right?
Yeah.
Here's an example of the far right.
Yeah,
so
we're balanced here.
We're balanced here. So a neighbor of a family member, right, sent this and said, "Hey, this is great news," right? And it's from this website. It's called like USA Watchdog or something. Yeah. And again, this expert, right? Yeah. This whatever now a right-wing expert in this case, he says is a former assistant Treasury Secretary. He talks about how there's not going to be a shooting war. Yeah. And this was on the 22nd, by the way. It's not going to be a shooting war, and they're going to take like a separatist region with minimal shelling, and then everything's totally fine. So don't worry about it. Not only that, it's justified because Ukraine's neo-Nazis. Yeah. And all this kind of shit. You know, that typical rhetoric.
I don't know why
stuff.
everyone's going on about Ukraine being Nazis.
Because people are so ashamed to be wrong about Russia's overreach here. No, Russia's not going to do that. You know?
And then when it does, they're like, oh, well, Ukraine deserves
Ukraine's
it
bad
anyway.
Yeah. And I'm getting also, I had some people reach out to me. Actually, a lot of people reach out to me now telling me that Ukraine only exists because of the CIA. And so it doesn't really matter.
This conspiracy shit has to go away.
It's the reality of the situation is that a dictator invaded a sovereign democratic country in Europe, and we're dealing with the aftermath right now. Actually, we're currently dealing with the current situation. So I was seeing this, and the reason I wanted to bring this up is that Winston and I are heavily involved with Chinese propaganda. We know how Chinese propaganda works because we read and speak Chinese. Yeah. One thing I've always heard about was Russian propaganda. Yeah. It's much more savvy, right? I've never seen it. Like, I've never gone out to go look for it, right? Yeah. But because we're trying to find these connections between China and Russia in this whole sphere, I've been running across a lot of things like this. Yeah. I got to tell you guys, like, right or left, whatever side you're on, doesn't matter. Be very careful about what you're consuming because there are things like this, these kind of boomer, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but the type of audience that would consume this on Facebook and share it around. Yeah. This kind of media it's Russian propaganda.
Yeah. So this is Russian propaganda.
You're looking at Russian propaganda here, and it's pretty insane.
You know what else is Russian propaganda?
What?
Is the thing we showed previously.
That's what I'm saying. They're both examples.
This
right
George
and
Galloway
left.
guy is Russian propaganda too.
This is far left and that's far right, but it's the same
But they're
thing.
both Russian propaganda.
Yeah, and it's all out there. So not being an expert on Russian propaganda, I just wanted to say I was shocked and now getting very interested in seeing how pervasive it is. It's all over the place. And we're going to show you the connection between that and China very soon.
Yeah. So here we've got Cgtn. Yeah. This is what
that's
they're
a video.
putting out.
So
yeah, I'll play it. But what are they saying there? Okay.
Look at, oh, there's bots in here. Look at, they're like, you don't understand the conflict. This is their job.
Yeah, of course.
So I want to give a timeline on how the Chinese coverage. People came to us because they want to know how China is covering this / what they're involved with. So when it first came out, I'm pull up my notes here. When it first came out that this was happening, right? The initial invasion, not the full scale invasion, was, what are you talking about? Cut off all the media.
Yes.
This is before the leak. Cut off all the media. They're like, what are you talking about? There's no invasion. Why are you stupid, crazy Western media outlets making this such a big deal?
Yeah.
To the point where, just like the Russian propaganda you showed earlier, the right and left one, there's no conflict. So China's state narrative, Cgtn, although this is a citizen video, Cgtn is Chinese state
exclusive.
media.
See, exclusive Cgtn. A Chinese student who lives in Kiev says locals are not fleeing on a large scale at this moment. Most of the private cars are still there.
So this was flying in the face of when people were fleeing Kiev.
Yeah.
When you saw those highways going absolutely crazy, just chock full of cars, China's response was, nothing to see here, just like Wuhan, just like it really just mirrors every time something happens, just like the chained up woman, just like Peng Shuai. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
And so that's what they do. Their first response was that there is no conflict. Yeah. Right. There's still remnants of that. So the next part of the timeline, this is the headlines from today.
From today. Okay? This is today. People's Daily Online. This is the biggest newspaper for China out there.
Yes.
For every day. And there's not a mention of it.
No.
It says, she urges China winter sports athletes to strive for nation, people.
Very, very interesting. When you have the China's mouthpiece internet from the government as their front page, not talking about what every headline in the entire world, in every country is talking about right now.
They have a little side note there
that
says Chinese embassy in Kiev prepares to bring back Chinese nationalists amid... Nationals, sorry. Well, same thing.
In that case, probably.
Nationals amid escalating Ukraine-Russia crisis. Okay, good. So that sounds like, okay, cool. But what is that? What are they actually talking about there?
So that is, I leave this up because this is just fascinating to disseminate.
Okay.
So the Chinese people in Ukraine started spazzing out. And you know why? Because China blocked all information about it. They said that there was no invasion in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So you had Chinese nationals living in Ukraine that said, why are there bombs going off everywhere? And why are there people dying? Yeah. Why is there a full-scale military invasion here? You said that there wasn't.
They're also complaining that the Chinese embassy wasn't evacuating.
That's what I was getting onto. So they were like, because it didn't fit the state narrative.
Yeah.
They said there was no conflict.
Yeah.
So why would they go evacuate people? So Chinese people started getting angry at the central government, saying, why are you not evacuating us? So then they're like, okay, we'll evacuate. Just shut up about it. Don't talk about it. But they went online. They're like, get us out of here, dude. Yeah. So that is combating that piece.
Yeah.
Right. This is fascinating to disseminate. Yeah. So you also have some stuff about what the foreign ministry said, and we'll pull that up next.
I like the top one up there. It says the bungled American dream. U.S.'s record of failures in battling COVID-19.
Yeah. This is like almost a mirror image of what they put in Chinese as well, by the way. So this is just the English version.
Yeah, this is the English version.
So you guys can read it.
Yeah.
So this is where it gets interesting. You guys want to know how China's covering this? Well, I told you it's a timeline. It's going to morph. Now that there is an invasion and that they have to kind of say, okay, all right, there's some bombs. There's some stuff going off here.
Yeah.
The foreign ministry, Hua Chunying, who is a wolf warrior.
You can see her over there. That very...
You can explain to the new audience what is a wolf warrior?
We call them turd warriors, wolf wankers. It's basically China's undiplomatic diplomats.
Yes.
So what they do is they go out there and they just speak insulting crap on behalf of the Chinese government. You know, it's kind of like a bully who says, nah, you suck. You know, like that. Mm-hmm. Except it's supposed to be a diplomat. Yeah.
Perfectly said. So what did she say? Well, her job is to tell you what China's official narrative is, right? Mm-hmm. That's what her job is. That's what the foreign ministry spokesman does. Yeah. Spokeswoman in this case. She says the U.S. has been increasing tensions and hyping up a war for some time. Do you know how many arms and ammunition the U.S. sent to Ukraine? Man, the U.S. lives in China's head rent-free, dude. Holy crap. If the United States had done more to promote peace and respect Russia's security worries, war could have been averted.
Yeah.
This is not the time to pour oil on the flame, but to put our heads together to come up with a way to put out the fire and safeguard peace. So this, you'd have to be actually intellectually disabled to not read through read between the lines here. China, in the beginning, was first trying to say there wasn't anything wrong.
Yes.
Then they were like, we're not going to take sides because China's number one favorite, ultimate, serious go-to quote is that we do not get involved with other nations' affairs. And other people shouldn't get involved with other nations' affairs because they don't want people getting involved with their genocide, their human rights atrocities, their border disputes, all the stuff. Taiwan issue, all the stuff that they do wrong.
Yes.
They don't want other countries to be able to tell them what to do, right? Or even guide them. So this invasion is kind of scary for China, who has to pick a side.
Of course.
Unfortunately for China, they have to pick Russia's side because they're going to benefit from a conflict secretly.
Not unfortunately, that's what they want.
Unfortunately for humankind.
Yeah, for humankind.
For that's what they want. They're going to benefit from supplying Russia with things behind the scenes, and they're also going to benefit from having a fair weather friend for the time being, in a time where people are going to be very, very negative towards Russia, at least public sentiment and sanction-wise, right?
Yeah.
So Hua Chunying, our wolf wanker, wolf warrior, turd warrior,
This woman over here.
she is basically using language to make it sound like, or dress up this idea that, hey, we didn't take a side, but actually we completely support what Russia's doing. And I caught them, actually.
Yeah, if you read into what she said there, she basically, the tankies do this too all the time. They say, oh, yeah, we should work together. The U.S. is so bad. We should just work together. But meanwhile, what they're saying is...
What does America have to do with this?
Yeah, exactly. What they're saying is you must do what China says. And in this case, they're like, well, it's the U.S.'s fault. If they just allowed Russia to overtake the Ukraine without a fight and without saying anything about it, everything would be okay.
Yeah.
That's what she's saying.
That's exactly what it is. That's tanky logic. And by the way, tankies, if you're new, a tanky is a class of person who believes in authoritarianism.
Yeah.
So not
supports
just
these communist
not just communists. It's not just communists. They support like dictators.
Yes.
Like they want full state control over stuff. They would support like a Gaddafi. They would support a Hussein. They would support a Xi Jinping. A
Yeah, it's
Putin.
morphed. And the term tanky comes from the time when the USSR invaded some of its own states who were starting to rebel and use tanks to kill the civilians and stuff.
Right, and they support that.
They support that, yeah.
It's by any means necessary, more or less, is what they support. So this is the next part of the timeline, was how state media took their foreign and this is not necessarily what they said to their own citizens. This is what the foreign ministry said to the rest of the world, is like, we actually are supporting Russia, but we're going to say we didn't pick a side, and stupid US made this war happen.
Yeah.
Absolute absurdity, right? So keep going.
Yeah, let's see. It gets a little bit more in depth.
It does. So after Hua Chunying made her statement, we also saw some stuff from the foreign ministry, which was Wang Wenbin, right? This is another foreign ministry spokesman, Wang Wenbin.
Yes.
We don't hear too much from him. We usually focus on
He's
Zhao
usually
Lijian.
not that bad.
Well, he's bad.
No, he's terrible. But when it comes to the Wolf Warriors, he's not one of those in-your-face types.
Sure.
He's still a terrible person, but you don't see him like Zhao Lijian or Hua Chunying. He's not out there like, you stupid idiots,
Exactly. Yeah, he's more of the one that like is supposed to have
reserved,
more, a bit more reserved. Again, I don't think it's personal choice. It's like the role that they've
It's like when you got
selected
a pack of like rabid dogs. He's the one that doesn't bark as much as the others.
Right. I was gonna say it's like when you're like designing a character in like Skyrim or something, you turn up charisma. Like Zhao Lijian and Hua Chunying, that's on 0.
Yeah, just so they could have like strength instead of
they can't buy an apple without getting into a conflict.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, so Wang Wenbin here, and I took this from the same page of Chinese state media.
Wang is a weeping.
We didn't say that.
No, it's just
That's
in the
not-
chat. It doesn't even, what does it even make sense?
Okay, so this is from the same set of articles on state media. I just found
the
this
same set. Yeah.
I don't want to say hilarious because this is a bad situation, but it says China has always decided its own position and policy based on the merits of the matter itself, and has always stood on the side of peace and justice. Can you take us away so I can read the actual thing from one of the same articles? The Chinese side supports the Russian side in solving the issue.
Yeah, so in his speech, he's trying to say we don't pick sides type thing. But then is it in the same article or a related?
The same
article?
page, the same. It's the same article from the same source.
Yeah, so basically in the same source, it says that the Chinese side supports the Russian side. In other words, they fully support Russia in this particular endeavor.
And I do want to give context to that quote. I put that in for effect, obviously, but it says like in resolving this issue through whatever, like diplomacy or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, China has. I'm going to do a full breakdown on my channel about how China is saying one thing and doing the other in terms of geopolitics.
Well, that's what they always do.
Yeah, for sure. But
We're
I'm going to
not
break.
building militarized islands in the South China Sea.
Exactly.
And they do it.
I'm basically going to translate what they mean.
Exactly.
So this is the next part of the timeline here.
Yeah.
So we saw them go from it doesn't exist to it's USA's fault to, okay, we support Russia, but we can't say we support Russia.
Yes.
But we're going to let everyone do their own thing, right? To official documents being leaked.
Yeah, this is an official for one of the biggest news sites. Okay, it's a direction of how the news has to cover this whole Ukraine-Russia crisis. Okay,
Yes.
This was leaked before the invasion.
So you can see through these bullet points I'm about to read that when you have your state media mouthpiece outlet and the censorship board that has dictated what is allowed to be said and what is not allowed to be said, what side they've actually taken here.
Yeah.
And accidentally post, and this is an accidental post from the censorship.
Yeah, they screwed
outlines.
up actually, and they posted it publicly. by
Are you
mistake.
surprised?
No.
How many times does this happen? How many times do we get our hands on documents by accident?
Yeah, because they just don't know what they're doing.
They
One hand doesn't
CC
know
us
what
an
the other is
email.
doing. Yeah. Dude, we got such a good one, but we can't talk about it just yet. But it's so good. It's so good. Yeah,
fantastic. Keep your eye out on
They
some
keep
big
confusing us with someone else, so they keep
my
sending
gosh.
us stuff.
They're
Anyway,
so dumb.
they are. Anyway, we'll come up with that later.
This accidental post here on Tuesday revealed a Chinese media outlet's instructions on the Russia-Ukraine coverage. So first, of course, state media with one of the lowest journalistic freedom ratings in the world, of course, is going to have guidelines.
Yeah.
Let's see what those are. Horizon News, which is a subset of Beijing News, again, state media, shared the instructions on its Weibo account.
Yeah, by mistake. By the way, you can be guaranteed that whatever these instructions are for the subset news have been given to the higher up news as well. It's the same set of instructions. It just gets sent to everyone.
That's absolutely
and
correct.
It gets sent to all the social media platforms too. Anyway, what does it say?
The reason that these types of things happen, this is like a lower level one.
Yeah.
There's more room for error.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though we've seen top ones like Cgtn accidentally leak stuff,
Yeah.
which we've covered on our videos. The Post noted, and Weibo, by the way, Weibo is Twitter for China.
Yeah, it's
China's
Chinese
version
Twitter
of Twitter.
knockoff, yeah.
Because Twitter is banned and blocked in China.
Of course.
Cue the people the new people here like, based China. Twitter's toxic. The Post.
Weibo's toxic too, bro.
Oh my, worse.
let's keep going.
The Post noted that no anti-Russia content would be published.
Yes. Not allowed to publish anything anti-Russia. That's number one.
So that's the most important thing to take away from this. And basically goes into detail about how the Ukraine conflict, it needs to look like there was no side taken, but officially
So if
we support
the
Russia.
Russian military goes in and slaughters civilians, it's not allowed to be talked about.
Correct.
If they do anything bad, it's not allowed to be talked about.
Correct. I'm not surprised.
No.
But that does reveal a very, very on purpose bias.
Oh, of course.
Which is going to have to lead you as a viewer will lead the way that you kind of perceive the news coming out of this in the future, and China's relationship with Russia can really start to blossom from this news that they've leaked.
I'll be honest with you. Like right now in China, a lot of the people that I've been talking to aren't even aware of the situation.
Yes.
It's just such small news, and it's so blocked out right now that they're like, oh, really? Whatever. Let's talk about something else.
And that's a good point to bring up, is we're covering kind of what they want us to see and like how they want us to perceive how Beijing's going to take care of the situation. But domestically, it's not full media blackout, but it's very curated.
Yes, very, very curated. So much so that it's a non-issue for like a huge amount of people.
Right.
All right, what's the next point?
You guys can go into that in full detail. This sets up exactly what we're going into that we've discovered. We think this is something you can find online, right?
Yeah.
What's more important is something palpable and real that we've discovered.
Yeah, yeah.
And Winston actually put this together.
Yeah, we're going to go into that now.
Go for it.
What else did they say in their little post, though? It wasn't just you may not report
I just made
negatively.
a couple bullet points here.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
I didn't want to spend 6 hours on this.
Okay, all right, fine. All right, we'll move on then. Okay, so now we're going to talk about hang on a second. We've got to talk about this quickly.
This is real.
Yeah. On our by the way, on our subreddit, if you don't know about it, it's reddit.com/r/ADVChina. A member there has a popular Instagram account about living in Japan. And he says, as my family lives in the Ukraine, I started posting about their difficult situation. Soon after, my account was flooded with comments from the troll account saying Japan is stealing kimono from China. So you see, the Wumao army is already out there. Anyone starts to criticize the situation in the Ukraine, which of course is going against the CCP narrative. Now they are attacking anyone.
This was a delicious piece of proof that
Yeah.
we had, because of this leaked document about like there's no anti-Russia content allowed to be covered in China, is proof, because when the Wumaos, the paid internet trolls, are going after to run defense for Russia, the two propaganda networks have linked up.
Oh, and yeah, we're going to show you that right now. Okay, so remember we talked about this sterling example of a human being called George Galloway, who I'm sure we're going to be talking about more in the future.
Yeah, since we've discovered it.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it when it finally decides to tick over to the next slide. This takes time sometimes, you know.
I just like to give us enough time to talk about things.
Okay, so remember this George
Read it
Galloway.
again.
You all said hashtag Russia was about to invade Ukraine. I told you it wasn't. You were wrong. I was right. Again, show some bloody humility, especially if they're not even paying you to act like an idiot.
Before you go into this, can I say who he is real quick?
Sure.
So people have an idea.
Yeah, who is this George Galloway guy?
So we
I'll
found
bring up
out.
the next one so we can...
Sure.
In fact, the next slide should give context as to who he is.
Good point.
So when it decides to come up, there we go.
So George Galloway apparently is some sort of British politician. And when we say that, it's very clever how this stuff happens, because if you Google him, it's like, oh, he's just a British politician that happens to be a correspondent for RT, which is Russia's state media. It used to be called Russia Today, right?
Yeah.
But actually, when you say politician, he's part of some bizarre tiny party that he founded himself.
Yeah, it's like if we went out and started the Democratic Labor Party Union,
Right.
or something like
Right.
that, and then we said like we're politicians, and
Right.
we've got like 100 members or something.
Or 5.
Yeah, whatever.
Or whatever the minimum is.
This guy's got a weird history. We're not going to go into his history. That's not the point. The point is that you can see here on the official RT channel and RT UK, which is the Russia Today. It's now just called RT. This is a Russia propaganda, outlet. He's one of their main spokespeople. He runs his own talk show for them.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, this guy, when you saw that tweet
Yeah,
saying that there was no invasion, right?
yeah.
You have to know full on in the beginning that he is a Russian propagandist.
Yes, that's why we're showing here. He is on their official mouthpiece channels.
I looked him up.
Yeah,
Full public support for Saddam Hussein, Bashar al-Assad, multiple dictators. This guy is basically, mother of all talk shows.
That's
it
what
should
he
be
calls himself.
the mother of all tankies.
the mother of all tankies.
Right.
He's a massive tanky is what we're trying to say
Yes.
here. Okay. But now it starts to get in depth. So you see he runs this talk show called Moats.
Mother
Okay.
of all talk shows.
Yeah, which he's obviously building moats around people walling things off. He's just
And shouting anti-Semitic slurs.
Yeah, he literally shouted out like
That's for another time.
Yeah,
but
he shouted out. But he's a terrible person. Yeah. Anyway, the fact of the matter, he runs this talk show on behalf of the Russian government. Sorry. Okay, but you might be surprised to see a few things. Okay, so you can see there it's labeled. RT is funded in part or in whole by the Russian government. Okay, you can see that.
Right.
There's a label. So if you see this pop up, you can be like, okay, it's Russian propaganda. It's
Yeah,
good.
I mean, and you would move on from that
Yeah.
until we discovered something.
Exactly. You'd be surprised to find out that he's also a frequent guest and talk show kind of host thing on Cgtn as well.
China's
Ooh.
state media.
Yep.
Full
they're
on.
constantly interviewing him. There he is with Liu Xing.
Yep.
Okay. We all know her. She's connected to a lot of the propaganda in the English-speaking propaganda coming
Yeah.
out of China.
Yeah.
And once again, look, Cgtn is funded in part or, by the Chinese government, right?
Yes.
Whole or by
Yeah.
in part.
So again, to go back to that, you have a slide of him on RT, and it
Yes.
says RT is funded in part or in whole by the Russian government.
Yes.
He is now on Cgtn. I want to reiterate, is funded in whole or in part by the Chinese government.
Okay, now here he is on RT with Li Jinjing. Okay, if you've been around long enough on the channel, you'll recognize Li Jinjing.
We got to treat it like you haven't.
Okay, Li Jinjing is an official reporter for Cgtn. Okay, she's also, and we're going to show you why this is important. Okay, so she's a reporter for the Chinese state media.
Yes.
Here she is appearing on Russian state media,
RT.
along with this Galloway dude. And it says over here, again, RT is, funded by the Russian government. Okay, that's fair enough. So you've got a Chinese state employee on a Russian state employee's thing on a Russian state media channel.
Yes.
Okay, but now this is where they try to get away and blur the lines. Okay, here, just to once again set up who this is. There is Li Jinjing at the whatever it was, the centenary of the Communist Party. But here, that same interview, that same talk show, is now, she has posted it on her own personal channel. Okay, and this is where the lines get blurred. Because if someone were to watch this, okay, there is no label there saying that this is funded by the Russian government. Or the Chinese government. You see, they just like, oh, it's just a little channel of this Chinese girl who likes to talk to people or what have you, And she puts other little things on there. But this is made by RT, Russian media. It's got a state-sponsored Chinese reporter, and it's been put on just a normal channel that's no longer labeled. So if somebody watched this, which a lot of people have watched it if you look at the numbers, okay, somebody watches it on her channel, they'll be like, oh, this is cool. And they don't have that warning that this is actually state media,
It's one thing I want to point out that's very important is that Twitter has designated her. Can you pause it for a second?
Yeah.
Has designated her as a agent of the Chinese government for media.
Yes.
Right, a media agent. YouTube refuses to do so.
Yeah.
And it bothers me when it says funded in part or in whole by the Chinese government. That's the Cgtn channel. That's the Chinese media channel.
Yeah.
But she's allowed to have her own channel, which is not labeled as such.
Yeah.
And it has identical material.
Exact same
And it's
stuff.
something that we keep pushing for.
Yeah.
That YouTube, and remember in that, was it New York Times article, they said, we haven't found any sort of connection to a mass scale like campaign by the Chinese government. Bullshit, Google. Get your head out of your ass.
Yeah.
Because this is incredibly immoral to have authoritarian dictatorships allowed to run personal channels with identical mirrored videos without the watermarks in there. In this case, even with a watermark in it, and then not labeled as state media. Correct. Twitter does it. Why can't you do it?
Remember, everybody, CNN and MSNBC and all these, they may be biased, they may be bullshit mainstream media, Fox News and stuff, but they are not funded by the government. It is not government funded. So, you can't have...
Not just that straight up mouthpiece.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't have the CIA and the FBI or whatever say, you must go and say this because you belong to us.
Yeah.
And then they have to say it. RT and Cgtn are under direction from the government and the Communist Party of China and the Communist Party of Putin or whatever it is called. Okay,
the autocratic party.
The Russian Federation of bullshit. Now, over here, you can see again, here it is on Cgtn, Li Jinjing with other propagandists that they use, foreign propagandists.
Again, read it.
Says Cgtn is funded in whole or part by the Chinese government. So it gives you a fair warning. All right.
It's good. Thank you for telling me.
That way, you know that what you're hearing coming out of the mouths of these people is from the state, at least in part, or it's condoned by the Chinese state. There she is again with the soldiers, all right? We're not talking about a little YouTuber who's all by herself making videos.
We've heard that story a few times.
Yeah, exactly. She is working for the Chinese state. Here she is doing behind the scenes of the Beijing military parade. Okay. And it gets better. Again, who's that? There's Cardi C. Those
Cardi
of you who don't know, the Cotton, the I'm a who, the whatever. There she is again with other foreign propagandists. And it tells you as much, which is great. And it warns you. Okay, now let's move on here. Let's get back to Galloway. Here he is interviewing a tankie, okay, and another sympathizer for the Communist Party of China, an awful person. But, you know, it's straight up, you can see here, it says here that RT is funded by the Russian government. So here, it's very straightforward. You can see this guy's for Russian propaganda, working for Russian propaganda, and so is he, okay? It's there, you can tell. The message that's coming out of their mouths is on behalf of the Russian government. They are Russian propaganda.
Right. Correct.
Okay? And you can tell.
And YouTube tells you
Yes.
what you're watching is Russian propaganda. Watch it at your own discretion.
Yeah, exactly. So here we have clear-cut Russian propagandists. What do you know? Here again, same guy, except
Chinese
it's
propaganda.
Chinese propaganda.
So I can watch that and I can say, hey, that's Chinese propaganda.
Yeah. So what we can see here very clearly is state-sponsored propaganda and state-sponsored propagandists. Both of these people here are working on behalf of the Chinese CCP state to put out propaganda. Okay? But then, again, they try to sidestep it because look here. This George Galloway guy, the same interview, all right? The same thing. Russian propaganda is now on his channel, George Galloway, and it has no label. And it's got views.
Correct.
So the people who've watched this on his personal channel think that this is maybe his own little talk show. He's just a podcaster, you know, he's just doing this thing.
Despite the art.
And he's, yeah, I know. I mean, they didn't take that out, but they do sometimes.
They often do.
Yeah. So what you see here is you can see proper state propaganda, tanky propaganda from the Russian government is masquerading as just a talk show on a personal channel. You know?
So Dustin Pearson here in the chat makes
Yeah.
a really good point. He says, well, he asked a great question. It's something we tried to address a million times. Can we report these videos for non-labels? You can't.
No, YouTube doesn't allow that.
I have tried to get in dialogues. I'm not trying to narc out these channels. What I'm trying to do is make it transparent because what YouTube has done is finally one of the last people to do this, to capitulate to the overwhelming demand to make it transparent that you're watching propaganda from a government.
Yes.
Right? And they've done that with the government channels, but these, what do we call them? Not booster channels, amplifier channels.
Yes, amplifiers.
These amplifier channels don't get the same label despite posting the exact same thing. And when you think you can go to report, you can report for anything. Report for violence, report for this, report for swearing. You cannot report for sidestepping the rules and regulations that say that you have to report this as state media.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and this is the thing that frustrates me the most is we have a lot of people out there who try to shut us down.
Yes.
They don't try, they just want to silence us.
Well, yeah, it's in the interest of these governments
So,
to try to silence
in fact,
us.
the people that you see in this picture behind us have tried multiple times to cancel us.
I would say 1,000 times.
Yeah, shut us down, sick the government on us, you know, sick the whatever you know, go after our families, discussing things that these people do. But their end goal is to silence any opposition. Our goal is not to silence psychopaths like you see over here.
No.
Our goal is to show transparency, who they are. They work for these governments.
There are very good maps and things like ASPI put out one that shows you the CCP influencer, so in this case, this guy here, and all of their links to every state outlet, who they're getting their information from, who they're getting signal boosted by, and it's so goddamn clear who they're working for and who they're maybe funded by, who they're at least amplified by in the country where they live.
Yes.
And YouTube won't say that it's state-sponsored media.
No. It's ridiculous.
That's bloody outrageous.
Bloody outrageous.
Well,
Anyway.
this is important, and the reason, and it's not just that. This is not just our appeal to call for that.
Yeah.
I think it's important in this day and age where we're going to see much more Chinese and Russian propaganda.
Yes.
And we found a connection
Yeah.
between the two, and it's something that they've been trying to hide.
Yes.
It's something that has not served them to be public about. No one in Russian leadership in the past wanted to say we endorse the Chinese state, and vice versa. They're not supposed to have really anything to do with each other.
Yeah.
But in faced with conflict, you see both propaganda teams joining together. And again, this Russian propaganda would have never ended up on my doorstep if it didn't have something to do with China now.
Yeah.
And there is severe crossover between full-on Russian state media and Chinese full-on state media. Their guests, their agents, working together.
Correct.
Not just being like friendly guests on their shows. They
having
are
proper
being
segments.
sponsors, having
Yeah.
proper segments, and it's fascinating to see.
Yeah. So it's just like you say, it's fascinating to see that you have the same people. This Galloway guy is interviewing and being interviewed
Yes.
by the Russians and the Chinese state medias, and the people that are appearing on his show are also appearing on both Russian state media and Chinese state media. It's just straightforward. They are all working together to basically like a united front to spread misinformation and disinformation out there.
Here's a prediction I have.
Yeah.
It's something you guys need to be super worried about. Not worried about. You need to be hyper aware of.
Yes.
Okay. Remember those things? Remember this Galloway guy, that tweet that we showed, the ultra left and then the ultra right version of that, right?
Yeah.
That stuff is hard to delineate. It's hard to actually pick that out and say, oh, who is this person? Let me look him up and see his roots and why his motivation for this
Go
would
read
be
a
posted.
read the Wikipedia on this guy. You
My
will
point
be
is-
like, what the hell is this guy?
My point is that's there's a million of these people,
Yeah.
right? There's a million, and they have American, NRA looking, gun rights looking websites disseminating Russian propaganda.
Yeah.
I think China is going to actually, now that we've seen this collaboration, my worry is that China is going to start using the same savvy techniques that Russia has. I mean, let's be totally honest. Our job is, when we like kind of break down propaganda, Chinese propaganda, it's not the hardest thing in the world.
Yeah.
It's more funny, and that's
Yeah.
actually why the direction of our podcast could even be classified as semi-comedy.
Yeah.
Because China's so bad at propaganda.
Absolutely.
But when you have a collaboration like this, Russia is not bad at propaganda.
No, they're not bad at propaganda.
Russia knows exactly how to do propaganda, to the point where you have neighbors reading Russian propaganda on a pro-America website.
I know, right?
So my worry is that China will come together, they'll learn a thing or two from each other and start collaborating properly, but past state media.
Yeah.
Not just on these stupid bullshit. Who's going to go out there on Cgtn and be like, this is impartial?
Yeah, exactly.
Ooh, let me go on Sputnik or
Yeah.
RT. This is impartial.
That Galloway guy works for Sputnik as well.
Correct. My worry is it goes beyond that, and you start seeing China and Russia start to enter alternative media websites. So there's this narrative that goes around that says YouTube is communist. People will say, get on Rumble. YouTube is communist. You need to get on Rumble or Locals or Parler or whatever.
Yeah.
Or maybe on some other bullshit thing that they come up
Some
with. right?
random thing.
Some random thing. The worry I have is that people will start filtering into those things because they'll say, oh, screw censorship on YouTube and stuff, right?
Look, and I sympathize.
I do. I'm
I
not done.
sympathize because we're in that position.
Correct.
Okay, YouTube does shadow ban us, and it does really go after us because we're not saying the mainstream thing. And
Correct.
if we want to be able to earn money from our videos, we have to. There's a certain amount of self-censorship that has to happen.
Sure.
It has to. We can't show certain things which we need to often show, even if they're
Right.
censored. We
Right.
can't do it because it automatically gets our videos taken off of YouTube.
It's less about censoring on behalf of the CCP and more
Yeah.
that we can't show situations of
We
violence.
can't even talk about it. Like my
Yeah.
video got age restricted because it said graphic descriptions of
Again.
of the violence or whatever. I was
Correct.
talking about domestic violence issues in China.
And again, I agree that that's ridiculous. The thing is, I want people to be clear that this is not being censored on behalf of the CCP.
Yeah.
I think we
Yeah.
owe it to our audience to be very fair. And a lot of other channels I hear, this is absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
They'll cover like similar topics as us, and they'll say they're after us because of the CCP.
Sure,
That's absolutely not true. Maybe mass flagging with Wu Mao accounts and things, there's some semblance of truth. But nobody's sitting at YouTube saying, I'm going to shut down this channel because I love the CCP.
No, but what it is the general narrative, which
Correct.
the CCP shapes.
Correct.
Like the anti-Asia hate narrative
Correct.
and so on. They shape it in a certain way which affects everybody.
Right.
So they do. But so do many players like Russia, etc.
Correct. So I just wanted to say I'm worried that alternative media platforms will start to get this type of stuff in there with different actors.
Yeah.
Because when you can kind of morph an audience and say, yeah, screw those censors over, those commies over at YouTube or Patreon or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Some mainstream bullshit. Then you have a captive audience.
Sure.
And you have a captive audience that you can start to shape. And I've actually seen this on some alternative platforms. And I won't say what, but I think you can back me up in saying that some of the comments start to shift towards pro CCP narrative
Yeah.
without them even knowing that they're
Yeah.
going in that direction.
Well, I agree with you 100%. It's just something that we have to watch out about. But the fact of the matter is they already are on alternative media, and
Yes.
alternative media is YouTube.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Look at this. We've got propagandists here working for the Chinese government. Both of the people that you see above us here have their own personal channels, okay?
Right.
Which disseminate Chinese propaganda.
Right.
Okay, that's what they do. Here you can see, oh, it's labeled as such. But on their personal channels, it's not labeled as such. And they even post the exact same videos that you see here on their own channels, and it's not taken seriously.
Right.
And if anyone's following people, oh, look, it's just a travel channel, you know? Oh, look, it's just somebody who's got an interesting life in China, you know? No, it is state-sponsored bullshit that you're gobbling up when you watch it. You don't
Yes.
realize that because there's no label, all right? And look at these people that work for the Russian propaganda right here. They've got their own channels too.
Yeah.
And if you were to go to these channels and just watch one of the videos, you might be like, this guy has a point. That guy has a point. Oh, this is kind of interesting. Without realizing what you're doing is swallowing wholesale state propaganda, the propaganda of a government. Either the Russian government or the Chinese government, or in this case, both. Because you can see these same two people that you see up here right now also appearing on Chinese state media. Chinese and Russian state media.
In creating Chinese state media.
Yeah.
Not just
absolutely.
appearing on it.
Look, there we have Liu Xin again, same actor. All right? And then again, if we go back here, there, where is it? I'll show you again. There we go, Liu Xin, same actor. So the two people that are interviewing each other for Russian propaganda RT are also on Cgtn, separately speaking to the same woman. It's all connected. It's a huge, terrible, tanky, commie propaganda party that's going on over
It's a
here.
big party, and not
You know
the
what
good
I mean?
kind.
No, it's a
like the
communist
party
party.
room.
Yeah,
It's a communist party.
it is. Let's go to the communist party where everybody gets to
Everyone gets to
say
nothing.
America bad and then
Yeah.
just, I don't know, allow atrocities to happen without calling them out.
Yes.
You know?
I just want to say one thing. I was just looking at some of the chat.
Yeah.
I am, both Winston and I are very much anti-censorship. And I guess, and if I was going to finish, I was going to say, the reason that Winston and I choose a platform like YouTube is because it gets the most people.
Yes.
A captive audience that already has their mind made up about something doesn't need more of that, right?
Yeah.
YouTube allows us to talk to both sides, and both Winston and I think that the China and Russia issue is completely bipartisan.
Yes.
So if you're American out there, we're not taking the right or left side. In fact, Winston and I are both pretty much moderates.
Yeah.
Right? So
I definitely lean more to the right and you lean more to the left, but we're
Sure.
still in the center.
we're you make it look like over here.
Yeah.
We're literally like, if you could draw a very small circle around the middle, that's where we meet up.
Yeah.
So the thing about that is that reaching the largest possible audience to just say what we know, to explain things to you is our goal. That is our goal. And when YouTube does censor, we are absolutely against it. We're not supporting YouTube censorship whatsoever. But to me, and what I was reading, some of these people were saying is, we're calling for the state labels on these things, and they're saying that's censorship. That is
It's
not censorship.
It doesn't censor it.
No.
Look, this is still up.
Yeah.
You can go watch it right now. Putting a label on something is correct. And if we were by any chance funded by the American government, I'd like to see a label underneath my video
Absolutely,
too.
just out of transparency and fairness.
Yeah.
Right? But we're not.
No,
So
we're
we
not
don't
funded
need
by
one.
everyone, by anyone, other than you guys who support us.
Yeah,
you
that
know?
send us super chats and
Yeah.
whatnot. And unless you're the American government sending some fat super
Now
chats.
that would
then
be a clever way to do it.
That would. Come on. hook us up. Anyway,
Yeah.
we want to stay neutral in U.S. politics. It has nothing to do with what we talk about, and we hope you guys can appreciate that.
Yeah.
We just want to grill.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Totally.
the joke about like moderates. We just want to grill, man.
Yeah, we do.
Grill burgers, you know.
Yeah, that's all we want to do.
Anyway, I hope you guys found that connection interesting. And again, we're going to be keeping up. We've never had this many people watching us. So obviously it's an important topic. You guys think it's important. We're going to stay abreast of this.
Absolutely.
We are going to make sure that you guys know at least where we can put our name behind or our word behind what we believe. We'll chime in.
Now, what we need to do is we need to address some of the questions that have come up about the whole Taiwan issue. Okay?
Correct.
Because we were talking about this earlier as well. China is basically taking a back seat here and saying to Russia, we will support you. Let the West put sanctions up against you. Don't worry, we got your back. If you can't buy things from the US anymore, we'll sell them to you instead, you know? and maybe get a gas pipeline in return or something.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So it's a whole buddy-buddy kind of a situation here. The Chinese government is fully supporting Russia's actions right now, even if they're not outwardly saying it.
Yeah.
All right? Now, the whole idea of America or the West stepping in to fight is something that everyone's thinking, hey, look, this is what China's watching for. They want to see, is the West going to react? And if they don't react, that will embolden them to attack Taiwan.
Yes.
But you have to understand that there's no agreement for the West to help the Ukraine in this situation. Maybe you can explain it better.
So NATO, I mean, I think a lot of people know this, but just in case you're new to this whole scenario. So NATO, if Ukraine was to join NATO, NATO would have an obligation to defend Ukraine.
Yeah.
The reason that they're not being defended, well, directly being defended is because they're not, right?
Yeah.
The whole... you can take this with a grain of salt, but Russia's excuse was that Ukraine was trying to join NATO.
They keep saying that, but it never was going to. NATO never said that.
I was saying that's what I was saying. It was an excuse.
It was an excuse, and the people that bought that propaganda coming out of Russia are morons.
Yes, but that was happening.
Yeah,
and those are the same people that are putting these kind of
people
tweets out.
They were like, well, of course Russia's going to invade because the West keeps pushing for them to join NATO. It never was like that.
And that's what Hua Chunying is saying. That's what Chinese state media is disseminating.
That's what all these tankies like this Galloway and Dumbshill and all these people are saying.
And Russian propagandists in general.
Yeah.
They are using that as a very convenient excuse that Russia's national security was at risk, right? So what that's doing, and what a lot of you keep asking, is that going to shift China's policy towards Taiwan? Because China year after year keeps saying we have to reclaim Taiwan. Taiwan is not sovereign territory. It's part of mainland China.
Yeah.
Taiwan is not. About 90% of people don't want to be part of China. They have their own currency, democracy, government.
It's a country.
It's its own country.
Yeah.
Now, does that embolden China to finally go in there and take it out? Well, not necessarily, because in reality, America does have an agreement, unlike an agreement with Ukraine.
Yes.
That says on paper we have to defend you in a military conflict with China, because China, don't forget, you agreed that if we recognize you as one China, one nation, the PRC, which we do, which unfortunately I disagree with.
Yeah.
But when America says, yes, we sign a piece of paper, we think that there's one China, it's called the PRC, the People's Republic of China, it's a communist government, and you guys have China. That was the agreement. China said, okay, and we'll leave Taiwan alone, right?
Yeah.
Because that's part of the treaty.
Sure.
We'll leave them alone, we'll be the PRC. We'll still say that we own them, right? We can say whatever bullshit propaganda we want to our domestic populace and say we're going to take you someday.
Yeah.
But the reality is military conflict arises and America has to defend Taiwan. So that's why it's very different.
Yeah, there is an agreement in place.
There is an agreement in place. That being said, is China waiting on bated breath watching this whole scenario? 100%.
Oh, yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily make it 100% more likely for a Taiwan invasion, but what it does is, how far is the West willing to watch this conflict happen with Ukraine? And how much resources will they waste? How much of public opinion will be split on the issue? How will Russia fare in a situation like this where they're dumping an enormous amount of their economy into this invasion? How will all this play out? China's sitting in the background. They'll
Taking
profit
notes.
off of it, taking notes, trying to figure out if, push comes to shove, if the West would do anything in reality despite a treaty.
Correct.
So when I say, when people keep coming to me and saying like, oh shit, Russia invaded Ukraine, that means Taiwan's next, like it's going to happen tomorrow, right? I highly disagree with that.
Yeah.
I think that you can't put a date on it necessarily, but it's definitely far enough off to where you would have to see the fruits of this invasion first before anything would happen.
Yeah.
Right.
That's it. This is going to have to play out, and then
Yes.
China will make its move.
Correct.
If it's going to make a move.
Correct. And keep in mind, China, the way they act is very different. It's very subversive, very paper tiger.
Yes.
They do horrid things,
Yes.
but they do them not with headlines saying like, oh, look, we've just stormed Taiwan.
Sure.
Right. They'll try everything, they'll throw everything at the problem until they've exhausted everything.
Correct.
Now, one thing I do want to finish with is you might not think a leader, it's in their best interest to invade something like Ukraine because it's going to decimate your economy.
Yeah.
The whole world is going to sanction you. A lot of the populace doesn't even support it. It's not good for anything, right? So why would you do that? Well, that's what unchecked power does.
Correct.
When you have unchecked power, like someone like Putin
Or she.
then they can do whatever they want, and that's the issue. That's where the paranoia does creep in, because if you let them do what they want, eventually they will do something batshit crazy. Let's say you're faced with terminal illness, right? All of a sudden, the prospect of you taking back this claimed land that want to go down in history for taking, it makes sense. You're going to die anyway.
Sure.
Why not leave the world in ruins? And that's the problem.
Yeah.
And Xi Jinping, do not think that he is some more calculated, like, I'm sitting in the background and I'm smart and I'm going to think about this. He is a megalomaniac dictator that has literally taken China from a golden age into absolute nonsense on the world stage.
Correct. So that's the Taiwan issue. Of course, we will be watching very closely and trying to see what happens. And of course, it's early days in this whole Russia-Ukraine conflict.
It is.
This appalling situation, which nobody wanted to see happen except Putin,
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to keep watching and see where it goes from here. And of course, send all the love and support that we can to the people of Ukraine.
Absolutely.
And to the Russian people who are against this atrocity.
Yes, agreed. We can definitely say we support that.
Absolutely. So
Great.
we're going to get into Wumao Corner because we need to lighten things up a little bit here. What do you say?
Yeah, I'll do a couple super chats.
Are you going to do some super chats? So wait, okay, that was premature then.
No worries, you can do it again.
Oh, there we go. All right, I'm doing it again. Wait,
I meant
premature
like...
again. Anyway, yeah, we'll
Tommy.
do a few super chats and we're going to get into Wumao Corner. It'll lighten things up a bit, guys.
Tommy Key 07. A few months ago, the company that provides
You just read that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Korean. I don't read Korean. I'm sorry. Hi, just hi. Hi to you, F1. Madrox303 says, weekly tithe against the CCP. Glad to catch the live show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Belshazzar says, everyone have some supplies. If hacks and stuff do shut down, stay safe. And for everything else, I'll save what I think. Okay.
Yeah, cool. I mean, look, that's something that from the beginning of the pandemic, we were advising everybody.
Sure.
Just make sure you've got a little bit of extra. I'm not saying don't be a prepper. That's a bit extreme, but it's always good to have, I don't know,
absolutely,
a couple tins of tin food, just a couple, maybe a bag of rice or two.
Yeah.
Have some bottled water maybe.
Sure.
You never know.
No.
Keep your cars gassed up all the time.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
Yep.
Like if it's kind of half tank, I'll just go fill it up just in case.
Yeah.
What if all the gas gets cut off or runs
Never know.
out and you've got enough to go somewhere?
Yep.
Anyway, yeah.
You can ration it out.
Yeah.
Kathleen Morrison, thank you very much. Great to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
Reynolds, as a fellow Catholics, was it hard to practice your religion in China? Was there mass? Why is the church silent on Christian persecution? Only I am Catholic. And the Chinese state controls the Catholic Church. It's not actually a legitimate Catholic state.
Did you ever go to church in China?
I did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's run by the Chinese government, and it means that Rome has no legitimacy. So the Pope has no legitimacy. So that it's actually not real, right? It's completely state run. Right. Why is it silent? I don't think the church is silent. People talk about Christian persecution ad nauseum
all the time. Yeah.
Filthy Casual Play, how much of the wolf warrior diplomacy is because a permanent member of the Security Council, China can veto UN Security Council sanctions? I mean, wolf warrior diplomacy is just a dumb idea. It was just crafted. It was crafted by Xi Jinping's leadership.
Yeah.
It was this idea that you need to act like a macho man instead of
you have to show your strength.
Yeah.
Oh, we're a strong country now. We're going to make our mark on the block,
Yeah, it's like alpha brain stuff.
It's like chest pumping bollocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wing083, thoughts on that leaked memo from Xinhua? Why is that half the stuff we find isn't due to intelligence gathering, but Chapador? They had one job.
Yeah, you could say it's a lack of intelligence that leads to it, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yes.
They're very bad at this kind of thing. That's
man.
why we keep getting sent sensitive emails.
Bro, listen. You have a situation where China, a very educated, brilliant country, literally went through a cultural revolution where they killed teachers and intellectuals, demonized them, pushed them to the dregs of society, and brought up peasants and farmers into the leadership. You understand that still has a hangover today because that wasn't even that long ago.
Yeah, that's not long ago that they wiped everybody out, all the intellectuals. So this is what you get.
Yeah, so basically party members, they have a hard time dealing with email and Weibo. They haven't figured it out yet,
Yeah.
Count Blifford says, have you watched Peter Zahan's videos on China's coming collapse due to aging population and America losing interest in globalism? I don't think so.
No, not yet.
People have posted that on the subreddit, I believe. Light Seeker, Vlad is an animal. YouTube won't allow me to put his last name. What the Dazek? Probably because it's like in the spam filter, because everyone's going ape shit right now.
Maybe, yeah.
Sometimes that happens. Wild FX, can C-Milk run iRacing? Graphics card good enough?
Yeah.
Would you be interested? Is my graphics card good enough?
Yeah, of
Okay,
course.
cool. I've never tried that. Is it any good?
I don't know what it is.
Huh. So I love racing games, and I have a wheel that you bought me.
Yeah, I got the
Winston
Logitech
bought me a
thing.
wheel.
Got the Logitech thing with the pedals.
Jim
Christmas.
Flag. Yeah. Don't forget about the new tankmen of Ukraine. Yeah, that was devastating. It actually made me sick.
Yeah.
Titus Tucker, I respect your perspectives. I respect your perspective.
Correct. Well, I guess
Yeah,
it's
let's keep
time to
going.
hit Wulmau Corner, guys. So
We'll get to the rest of your questions in a bit.
we're gonna show you something that's kind of hilarious and ridiculous at the same time. All right. So we have managed to avoid talking about the Olympics so far in this episode, but it's come back.
You can't make this up, dude.
Yeah. So what happened during the whole speed skating thing during the Olympics? What actually happened?
So the South Korean dude passed the two Chinese dudes.
Yeah.
Right at the end.
Yeah.
And then the Olympic Committee, who is, let's be totally honest,
They're just beholden to the CCP.
Yes.
They just belong to the CCP.
they disqualified him, saying it was like too late or something. And the reason that it looks like the Chinese dude is pushing him out of the way is because he passed last minute. So then it made it he set himself up to basically run into people, right? Really, South Korea went wild because it looks like the Chinese dude literally pushing over the South Korean guy when he tries to pass, right?
Yeah.
And then gets disqualified, right?
The South Korean guy got disqualified, right?
So lots of uproar in South Korea.
And that's not the only time they cheated during this event with that puck, throwing the puck under someone's skate. Look, it was crooked and they got away with it every time.
I mean, there's a reason it's being hosted in China. Mm-hmm. Whole rabbit hole if you want to go down. Thomas Bach, president of IOC, friends with Zhang Gaoli, the guy that essayed Peng Shuai.
Yeah.
Let's be like that whole rabbit hole is fascinating.
Yeah.
But what I want you guys to know is that what if I told you that China, so we've established that China cheated in the Olympics in this particular speed skating. In general, really, speed skating in general. What if I told you China made a full-on motion picture about how Korea cheated and bullied in speed skating and bullied China in speed skating, and an underdog story about how China won?
Yeah, they did. And they made it before they cheated. So it's like they somehow prophesized
one day
what
before
they did,
but
saying that the Koreans would do it.
Yes.
Okay. So, here's a little, somebody shared this, on Twitter, and they said, China, notorious for cheating a lot in the short track speed skating, just released a movie where heroic short track speed skaters suffer serious injuries because of cheating Korean skaters and overcome the Korean bullies to win against Koreans. So we dug up the trailer of this.
You really can't make this up.
No, you can't. And you can see in the background how there's a particular part where you see, look at all the nationalism, show your nationalist pride. Oh,
they make it look like Chinese people give a shit about speed skating.
Yeah, I don't think most of them even know what that is, to be honest. Because winter sports are not huge.
No.
So anyway, where is it? Here. It's like, I think it's gonna show here where the South Koreans are like, oh, I'm gonna like really screw you over, aren't I? Here.
Yeah.
Push and go. You can do it. You can do it. Oh, man, this kind of stuff makes me cringe.
It's always like, let's show the opposite of what we do.
Did you cut a piece out of that?
Hello?
What?
There's a specific scene where the guy trips him over and then kicks him in the face with the that didn't come through.
Oh, weird.
Oh, well, there is a scene in the trailer.
Yeah, you can go look it up.
Where he trips the
called
guy
Fly
up.
Skating Star.
It's called Fly Skating Star.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's basically kind of hilarious how they made a movie, an actual full-length movie about how Korea cheated and hurt the Chinese athletes. It's bullied them.
It's the literal opposite of reality.
It's projectionism.
Every time.
Yeah. It's so ridiculous.
It's like making a movie about how America sold melamine milk powder to China.
Yeah.
Right?
Pretty much.
It's like about how they make up a country to say like Germany ran over students with tanks in 1989
Yeah, pretty much.
and tried to stop it.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. Oh, it's so ridiculous, man. Wow, it's been quite the episode today.
Yeah.
So I think it's time for us to hit Yamcha. What do you say?
That's right.
All right, guys. Yamcha is where we get to relax. We just answer your super chats. We have a bit of a chat. Okay, we got to wind down from this very serious topic. Of course, we still have to talk about it. We will be talking about it. And the way it works is, well, I loosen my tie. Okay, show you. It's
Then
not
I know to cut.
It's not a clip-on, by the way.
No,
It's not a clip-on.
I didn't think anyone ever was wondering.
Who
that.
wears clip-ons? Like a salesman at a freaking Enterprise rental or something.
In the 70s?
Yeah. Anyway.
I have to stand up. So.
Okay, you got doctor's orders, right? You have to stand up every once in a while. So you go stand up